RPA or it's existing an RPA message?
Yeah, so this data collection request is just a way to say that we need to request data collection to the LMF, but it's not related to the data collection meaning that we have in ran3. It's different thing. Because my understanding is that solution 2 mirrors a bit what we already have in ran3. Is this correct?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes, Marcia? Okay. Better? Microphone, please.
Okay, so a few comments here. So first of all, I want to really stress that it is not, in our view, so easy to revert that NRPPA principle about which node starts an NRPPA transaction. If we now say that is the run to start an NRPPA transaction, in our view, we have a very big impact on legacy because we have to now have a server on every gnode B. Right now, there is no positioning server functionality on a gnode B. So now, if we go for a reversion of that principle that NRPPA transaction can only be triggered by the LMF, it means that we have to update all the gnode Bs with server functionalities. So that might sound silly, but it's a big impact to us.
Nokia? Yeah, finish. Then Nokia.
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I guess in our view, the one ABC, there's no need to go to that level of detail now. I guess that in our view, we should look at either solution 1 or 2. But regarding this issue about a gnode B initiating an NRPPA message, today we have these NRPPA message exchanges while positioning UE, and that's part of the positioning phase of LCS. But here we're talking about a request phase. And when we earlier agreed that we would reuse LCS framework, it seems we're already diverging from it. I mean, if we were to truly reuse LCS framework, we would have an LCS client requesting the position. But we've already decided here with solution 1 and 2 that we would be using some new message, NRPPA, or this XN data collection style. So we're already diverging. I mean, there's no notion at this point of trying to be consistent with the past because, again, if we were being consistent with the past, the only way to request location information is via an LCS client. And we're not doing that. So we personally don't feel that anything is being violated by using an NRPPA message from the GMB because currently we have no existing mechanism to request location information in any other way than an LCS client.
But now I reply to you. So we said that we will respect the LCS framework, and the LCS framework says that an NRPPA transaction can be only triggered by the server, which is the LMF. So but in order to request the position of a UE, you need to be running a positioning exercise for the UE. In order to request, now, in this scenario, you are requesting a part B, right? And you want to match this part B with part A, which means that the positioning exercise for this UE has to be ongoing because you need the position of the UE and compare it with the inputs that you are getting. So you are under a process of positioning the UE, and then we go to the question, okay, who triggers part B, a procedure for part B transfer from the LMF to the RAN? So I agree that the RAN is the part that is interested in receiving this data, but there is also this other principle that over an RPPA, the RAN cannot trigger an NRPPA transaction. And if we have to contradict this,
why RAN cannot trigger such kind of data
because
collection?
this is part of 38455, is written in 38455 that an NRPPA transaction can only be triggered by the LMF, which means that the server for NRPPA is only in the LMF. And so if we revert, if we contradict this principle, it means that we have to install a server functionality in every GNOD,
Okay.
which is a big impact.
Maybe, again, maybe it's good to have a common starting point where everyone has sort of a common understanding of what is being assumed. So from what Angelo just said, he has an assumption that positioning session's already ongoing. So you're somewhat opportunistically using the position of a UE that the LMF is already doing. Whereas I think Qualcomm, in their proposal, it's more kind of reactive. They pick a UE that they feel is useful for this model. They want to configure the uplink SRS and then position the UE. So therefore, yeah, so these are they're very different. Because in your view, there's already a positioning session ongoing. So there's already an LMF that's already positioning the UE, and therefore the NRPPA transactions are already going. So anything initiated by the GNOB, an NRPPA message has to go to that LMF, which is very different than what Qualcomm is saying. Qualcomm is saying that the GNOB might select the UE because and configure that UE with a particular uplink SRS, and then decide to position that UE. So it will then initiate the position. So what is the common understanding?
The bottom line is that if you want to request part B for case 3A, you need to be running positioning on the UE. No, it is not, because
Qualcomm?
you need to position the UE to know the UE position and then receive the ground truth. I don't think there's a way out.
No, we first discussed part A, right? What you said about solutions.
Right. I mean, we have part A and part B, right? The data itself are collected by GNOD, but you need to have the UE location for the ground truth. But this can only be collected by the LMF. I guess we agreed at this last meeting.
Yeah, exactly. But for part B to be available and provided to the RAN, you need to be positioning.
Yes, but this is the same in all solutions, right? And positioning can always fail. So there's always a trial and error.
So I guess we all agree that if you want to retrieve part B, it means that you are running positioning on the UE.
But independent of the data collection.
What do you mean?
So yeah, it's really about who selects the UE. So in your model, the LMF is already positioning UE. So the LMF has selected UE. The UE in question has been positioned by the LMF. So the LMF has kind of de facto chosen it. Whereas I think what Qualcomm is saying is that the GNOB chooses selects the UE, and therefore the GNOB will initiate the positioning of the UE, which is very different from what you're saying.
Okay. Okay.
There's a message is non-UE associated in your discussion paper.
It's
so
not
the
UE
GNOB sends a
associated.
message to the LMS saying that I want data collection for this list of UEs. It's not for only one UE. And then the LMF, if it has this part B information available, if it has already the UE location, or it's going to start LCS service to position that UE, then it can send it to the GNOB to do training. So it's not per UE request.
No, it's per UE request.
But you say it's non-UE associated.
We have now different options and different versions of the solution. I mean, this is a detail we have to figure out, but both are possible.
We are not saying that the RAN doesn't select the UE. The RAN does select the UE in the data request towards the LMF and says, give me part B for this UE. But the node that initiates the NRPPA transaction and that tells the RAN, I am an LMF from which you can collect data, is the LMF. The LMF opens this transaction towards the RAN. Then the RAN can tell the LMF, okay, give me data for this UE. In our solution, we also take into account the case where a bunch of UEs are under positioning, a positioning process. The LMF knows that it has part B for these UEs, and it can advertise these UEs towards the RAN. That is also a possibility. And then the RAN can ask for this ground truth. But I don't think nothing prevents the RAN for us positioning for a specific UE, and then specify the SRS configuration, for example.
Right, but I mean, you assume, I believe, that the positioning session is ongoing, and I think that's the mistake in this solution.
Yeah, Nokia?
Again, maybe there's some way to harmonize these two, and maybe some of these differences were not intentional. But in your flow diagram, you have a message going from the LMF to the GNOB. And in that message, you have a list of UEs, and you're indicating the information you have for those UEs. And one of those pieces of information is the location. So I interpret that to be that an LMF would not indicate a UE unless it already has the location. So you don't have the opportunity, like what Qualcomm is saying, is that the GNOB might select a UE and configure that UE with a particular uplink SRS, and then request that information from the UE, which is more kind of a reactive bit.
But if I cannot, but we are not excluding the case where the GNOB requests for a specific UE to be positioned, and therefore a positioning process starts for a UE. The whole point of our solution is to let the LMF open the NRPPA transaction and state towards the RAN, first of all, I am an LMF with the capabilities to run this use case. I am an LMF that can provide part B to you. And now, if I am positioning some UEs, I let you know that I have this list of UEs from which you can already have part B. But nothing prevents the RAN to say, okay, I now want to start positioning for this UE and for this SRS configuration. But we would like to maintain this principle of opening the NRPPA transaction from the LMF.
Right, but I mean, the point is the NG-RAN doesn't need to care which LMF is out there supporting AML positioning. The AMF is selecting the LMF in any case.
But isn't it that if you let the RAN ask for part B by triggering an NRPPA message, this message goes transparently through the AMF?
No, that's not transparent. That's what I tried to say. Also, NRPPA, strictly speaking, terminates at the AMF. It's transported in NGLP uplink information transfer, which has a routing ID. And based on this routing ID, the AMF selects the LMF where to put this NRPPA message, but a different message.
Okay.
The AMF does not need to look into the NRPPA message. But
Okay,
it has
guys,
to look
But
into
then it
the
will not
transport
see
container.
that this is a
I have
request
to
for
stop
part B.
stop your
Yes,
discussion.
but this
So it
he
cannot know
knows
that
from the
it's
routing
actually-
ID. But this he knows from the routing ID.
Okay, let's stop the discussion. I think companies can understand each other with better understanding, especially for the assumption.
Right, that's
It's
why I think it's good
definitely
to have a
different assumption
general
here.
agreement or understanding what are the requirements we have to fulfill. Like which node triggers the procedure, which node selects the UEs, which node selects the SRS. I think once we know this a bit better, then it's clear how we design the signal.
Okay, so let's stop the discussion, this part. Then you guys can continue some detailed discussion during the offline. Then let's check the second issue, whether the previous working assumption can be turned to agreement in this meeting. So it's about the monitoring performance feedback. And ran node performs monitoring metric calculation for its own module. Any comments on this one? Could we turn this working assumption to agreement? CTT?
Yeah, we are okay to take to the agreement, but how to perform the monitoring metric in the NGRAN node is not clear. Whether need LMF to provide any information.
This can be discussed later. Let's focus on the working assumption first. CMCC?
Yeah, I agree that we can turn this working assumption to agreement. But again, IRMF is the one who calculates the final or gets the final position of the UEs. So it knows whether IMM model is good or not. So I think there needs some assistive information from IMF to NGRAN node for the model
Okay.
monitoring.
So with this assumption, maybe further details can be checked later. Huawei?
But in case 3A, it's the G node B, which hosts the model. So